3, 2, 1.
New York, NY. Launchpod starts now.
Welcome to the New York Launchpod, the New York Press Club award-winning podcast highlighting new startups, businesses, and openings in the New York City area. I'm Hal Cooper-Smith, and in this episode, we speak to Alexandra Janelli, the founder of Modrn Sanctuary, a wellness center located in the Flatiron District at 12 West 27th Street. And Alexandra is doing wellness in an untraditional way.
We did wellness different. We have black walls, and we have a crocodile wallpaper that the whole center was designed around that I found. And people, when I told them I was painting the walls black, let me tell you, we're like, that's not wellness. You're way off base. I can't believe you're doing this. And it was very intentional to play off the idea of sensory deprivation.
Modrn Sanctuary is unique because it's a collection of independent wellness practitioners that center around a salt room with Himalayan salt that's over 200 million years old. What does a salt room feel like? Here's Alexandra.
And I think that's absolutely amazing that when you're sitting within this salt room, it's almost like you're back in the womb, which if you think about a womb, it is salt water.
In this episode, we discuss Alexandra's path from being a wellness practitioner to starting her business, the growth of the wellness industry, and why you just need to head on over to Modrn Sanctuary, and it's not about the exclusive discount for New York Launchpod listeners at the end. You're also going to love Alexandra's voice because she has a hypnotherapy background. So, let's go to the interview. Stepping onto Launchpod, we have Alexandra Janelli, founder of Modrn Sanctuary. Welcome to Launchpod, Alexandra.
Thank you for having me. This is really exciting.
So, Modrn Sanctuary is a spa, wellness, co-working space. What is it exactly?
It's a great question. I think in marketing, we've been trying to really hone in on what our message is and what we're doing. In its simplest form, we are a wellness center, which means that many people, the more identifiable term would be spa. But we like to think that we're a little bit more than that because we're going to tap into your health. We're going to tap into your inner well-being. We're going to tap into a little bit of beauty there too. So a lot of it is that people are going to come to feel better. So our new tagline that we're really coming up with is feel better, look better, be better. And it's really about the whole wellness center is a collaborative workspace, which you're seeing a lot more of these days with WeWork and Blender and The Yard. But we wanted to do a similar situation with wellness practitioners to have a home to come to, because I think a lot of practitioners end up being solopreneurs. And that's hard to spend a lot of time giving, that it's nice to have a community to be within as a healer as well, to be part of. And we've really prided ourselves on having the most eclectic and unique group of practitioners and treatments all in one space that we can begin to help people really come home within themselves. And I think for us, home has been, well, for me, home has always been a very important place where you can feel like yourself, be yourself, non-judgmental, and truly be taken care of. And that's what I wanted to exude within the center, was an energy of not only feel like you're stepping off the elevator into someone's home with our living room style waiting room, but also to feel like you can really come home within yourself. Because if you're not feeling centered within yourself or really enjoying your internal environment, the world's going to feel very different to you, because I believe that the world is a projection of who we are internally and how we feel internally. So if you're having a really not great day, the world can seem really dark. And if you're having the best day ever, the universe is infinite. So that was really the intention and energy behind Modrn Sanctuary when I built it.
I think a lot of people would think that the outcome of their day certainly affects how they perceive the world.
Totally.
But you mentioned home within yourself. What does that mean exactly? That seems pretty deep.
It's very deep. I mean, I think the ultimate search in life is to find inner peace, right? You ask anybody, what do you want, right? It's the cliche, Miss America, world peace. But to feel at peace, right? When we really can be a human being, we get to just be. We accept that everything's okay. There's nothing we need to do. There's nothing we need to control. It's just this sense of everything is perfectly perfect, or perfectly imperfect, if you want to call it that. And so to find this state of inner peace is really first building the relationship within yourself. And once you're more I think a lot of us fall into this case of who we should be, what we're supposed to do. From a very young age, we become indoctrinated to the belief systems of our parents. Like animals, we become domesticated, right? Of what schools expect of us. You're supposed to get straight A's. You're supposed to, after high school, go to college. All these things, these belief systems, you should always say thank you, you should always do this. And yet, how can there be one rule that fits everything? So it's really, I find that a lot of, when I work with personal clients in my private practice within Modrn, a lot of clients who are coming to me at 23, 24, 25, they're like, I don't know who I am. They're so living other people's lives. So I think to find yourself within, come home within, is to really be comfortable with yourself. And my feeling and my personal belief is that life doesn't get easier, right? I think self-help books want you to believe it's all supposed to be easy, but life doesn't get easier. You just get to know yourself better, like what you like and what you don't like, what you're willing to put up with and what you're not willing to put up with. And so the better you know yourself through this awareness and energy, the more you can have a much more relatable experience at the world around you versus having a codependent relationship with the world around you, or one that you might not want.
And so how does Modrn Sanctuary help people find this piece?
Right. So I think there's a bilateral path in terms of you can start with the exterior, meaning you can come for more beauty treatments. I mean, let's face it, there's research that's been done on things like Botox, that when you get Botox, people, they do have this mood-enhancing effect. Now, does that mean that there's something in Botox that's going into your body to chemically change your serotonin levels or something? Probably not. But when people look in the mirror and they see themselves in a different way with less wrinkles or smoother skin, they do feel better. So you can start from the outside and begin to move inward. Or you can begin to work on your energy. If you believe in acupuncture or Reiki, those are working on energy channels. We can also work to align your spine, right? If you're in pain, you're not your best self. And so your pain levels are going to tell you where the work is to be done. And so we're here to, whether you want to work from internal out or external in, or just on one part, we want to be able to offer you the whole wheel, not just a spoke on the wheel.
And what sort of services is Modrn Sanctuary offering?
Okay, so if I go around, we have 5,000 square feet of space with 15 treatment rooms that are centered around a Himalayan Salt Room, which we'll probably get into in a minute. For those
did the salt room.
Yeah, for those who don't know what a salt room is, we have a physical therapist, aromatherapist, blood chemist, chiropractor, holistic skincare, clinical estheticians, crystal bed, a cryoskin, body slimming treatments, vaginal rejuvenation, Reiki, massage, cranial sacral, hypnotherapy, nutrition, registered nurse who does yoga as well. We have a acupuncturist, cupping, osteopathy, manipulation, and coaching. And then we do yoga, meditation in the salt rooms, and we're always looking to add on new things as well.
All under one roof.
All under one roof.
And it's all, what category would you say? Alternative medicine? Wellness?
I think it's an interesting question you're asking, because I like to use the term wellness.
Wellness.
You can call it health, you can call it beauty. My belief system is that wellness for so long has become sort of a kitsch term. Everyone wants to be well, but what does that really mean? A lot of my tenants who rent space with me had asked me, Alexandra, like, where's your line of what wellness is? Because I think what's interesting is a lot of the traditional alternative therapies, right? Your acupuncture and maybe chiropractic. A lot of people felt that when I started bringing in some beauty treatments that I was kind of crossing the line. Where is wellness? Where's the border? And for me, I had to actually step back and think to myself, well, where is the border, right? Like what is wellness? And I, as a hypnotherapist and a coach, I do believe that our own definition of words is very important, because we throw words around very lightly. So everyone throws around, like you'll hear it, to feel more in control, right? But what does that actually mean? And when you ask people, what does it mean to be more in the moment? They kind of look at you blankly. And then you're like, well, let's define it. And they're like, I don't know. And so the more you can get into the diction of something, the more you're going to begin to understand it. So for wellness, I had to say, what is wellness? Does Botox make you feel well? Does it make you feel better? And if the answer is yes, then there's something to it in a wellness capacity. So it didn't have to be so cut and dry of, no, that's beauty, or no, that's health. But I do think because we aren't a business, we have to cater to what most people know, while also educating and expanding their minds as well, to be more incorporative of that kind of language and terminology.
Well, wellness, which you touched upon, is such an interesting field at the moment. It seems like it's such a hot area because people are focusing more on wellness now. Do you see that? And why do you think that is?
I truly believe wellness is the next big industry that's really going to pop. I think it's already a big industry. If you follow it back through history, it's been something that's always important to people. People always want to feel better, right? You go back to the fountain of youth, right? People wanted to search for the fountain of youth. They wanted to find beauty in everything. It's why we love art. We are, in essence, like our own canvas. And so I feel that as you look through time, it's always been there, whether it was weight loss, you had speed that was going on, diet pills. People have always wanted to change. They want to be different. They want to feel better. They want to look better. Whatever that result gets them, they want more of that. And so I think what you're finding now is there is this push for feeling more healthy, especially in the bigger cities that are more metropolitan. It's much more accessible. The knowledge is there. I think New York and LA, you're going to find it much more prevalent than you're going to find in sort of smaller cities or in townships outside of the major metropolitan areas. But I do think there's an awareness that's happening. There's an awakening of people want to live longer. Life's good. And I do believe that you're going to see wellness becoming more of a top industry because people want to be happier. And I think that was also set up by the self-help industry, which is a great industry to be in, right? That sells millions and millions of dollars of books and tools, do these 7 steps. But I think there's a fallacy that they promise of you're going to be happy all the time if you do this.
Well, also it seems like we're stressed all the time. Our phones are there, we're working, or social media makes people unhappy. Are you seeing that at all, and particularly in New York City?
I am finding I had a really interesting conversation with my stepfather about this change that's occurring with electronics around us and the stimulation. From my work, being on the tail end of the millennial curve at 36, this generation of millennials and the one underneath them are suffering from severe anxiety. Now, whether that's actual anxiety or just a new kitsch term that's being thrown around to identify stress is really not to generalize, but to be diagnosed and more understood. But this generation is so overstimulated on it. I think we all fall prey to it, right? It's like we have everything accessible to us. What I believe is going to start to happen, we're creating and weeding out into this generation of very high functioning, fast processing personalities, but we're also moving further and further from intimate one-on-one connections. So I think there's a positive benefit to this and a negative benefit to this, right? We've deeply connected to people that we wouldn't necessarily be able to connect to. So there's a sense of togetherness. But when we take that stimulation away, again, we're not left feeling at home within ourselves. We find ourselves lonely. We find ourselves not liking ourselves. We find judgment, self-judgment happening. And it's easy to deflect away from those emotions and that sense of self by just quickly picking up the phone, calling someone, being so connected versus having to sit with that discomfort. And so I think there's this whole lack of emotional tolerance that's happening within these generations of, well, how do you sit with the emotion of disappointment? How do you sit with the emotion of fear or sadness or anxiety or depression or joy? Right? We're always so quick to, this great thing happened, I need to post it. But what about just sitting in that emotion? So one thing that I've been working with my clients in particular is really learning how do you tolerate an emotion? Because some of them are heavy, especially shame, embarrassment, jealousy, and embarrassment, right? So let's see, shame, embarrassment, disappointment, and jealousy. They're hard and they're painful. And so it's how do you learn to do those? We just are so quick to deflect away from them. It's almost like I'd love the world to have a blackout and be like, what happens?
So did you see these larger trends going on and think, all right, I need to open up Modrn Sanctuary? How did that come to be?
So it sort of, as most things happen in my life, I have finally fallen victim to this idea of the path was already made. I just need to follow my gut. If we go back in time, I've always felt I was a little different. I could never understand why, because going through high school, I think, is where I felt it the most. I went to boarding school, which was a personal choice to do. My parents both went. My brother went to the same boarding school. I had a great experience, really loved it, but was never that perfect boarding school student. I think I got a lot out of it, but recognized at a very young age that I was not going to be one of the high achievers. I think in my time, I wasn't good at, I hated history, pretty much nearly bombed out of that. Really good at science, really good at math, but never realized that I was good at it until a teacher really found that I was great, invited me to join an AP environmental science class. And that's where I fell in love with really realizing how good I can be when you find the right thing. But again, I wasn't doing great. In fact, my junior year tanked out, didn't tank out, but didn't do particularly well until my senior year when I started taking classes I really loved. And then that folded into college when I said, wow, I'm actually not a bad student. I just wasn't studying what I really loved. Doctors had diagnosed me with ADD, depression, whatever you want to call it. And I finally realized there's more than just what you're supposed to do. I always felt I was a square peg being pushed through a circle hole. And I think I was at such war and conflict with myself of what I should be, what I should do, always looking for approval. I remember calling my mother one day and her going, I don't know why you're calling me for my approval on this. If you want to do it, just do it. And I was like, wow, I didn't realize I was doing that. So for Modrn Sanctuary, everything has always sort of fallen into place in terms of I went back to school. After college, went to do environmental consulting for about 7 years. In that period, saw a hypnotherapist, blew my mind, loved it, got more out of it than I feel like I had gotten in several years of traditional therapy because we were working on a behavioral level. Felt like my life opened up to me managing fear. And then from there, it wasn't until a couple of years later that I ended up moving with my ex-husband to Chicago and realizing I wanted to go to school for hypnotherapy. Now, in between then, I started a really fun blog that helped me really hone in on creativity, which I would say is my strongest suit, is creativity. And when I came back to New York, I started my practice, or I moved my practice from Chicago into New York. And a couple years in, 2 years ago now.
Your hypnotherapy practice.
Yeah, correct. Went back to school for life coaching to get that, to do more work, where the coaching program of IPAC, they make you work on yourself first before you can really work on other people. Unbelievable skills learned there. And then it was ironic because I was out in Montauk, which I really used to not hang out in Montauk that much until one of my family bought a house out there. Went out there. They were like, we got to go to the Montauk Salt Cave. Most amazing place. Was with my boyfriend at the time who had horrible allergies. And we both went through this experience and we were like, we love this. And I wonder if we can continue doing it in the city. A couple things I would have changed about it. Looked into the city. There really weren't anyone doing it. I was like, I want to open this. This is what I want to do.
Salt room.
Yeah. I've never done any kind of development. I've always wanted to create space, but it's New York. It's high risk. It's high buy-in. And it's
high cost.
It's high cost. Yeah. So I put together this deck, this idea, and just really went balls to the wall to do it. Couldn't get a loan right off the bat. Couldn't find investors right off the bat. And just decided I was going to put up my own capital. Talked to my parents about a loan, talked to a couple people, and I made it happen. And within 6 months, everything fell into place. So the place I was working at, I originally was going to do just a salt room with 1 or 2 treatment rooms. And the owner of the wellness center I was working at was like, I want to retire. You should just I'm not going to renew the lease in October. You should try taking it here. Put the salt room in here. And it was some of the best advice I'd ever gotten. And I was like, could that happen? Would they give it to me? As luck would have it, some of the most miraculous things happen, which just keep telling you if these things happen outside what would normally be approved, it's meant to be. Things that aren't meant to be will drift away and not happen, which is great. So we've had a lot of change as the business has grown, and you just have to go, this is happening for me, not to me. And I solidified the renting portion of it before the salt room came in, and then designed the salt room. And the salt room really, while it was the original intention, was pretty much the last thing developmental wise to go into the center. And it's just become the energy of the center.
So a lot of it centers around the salt room. I had not heard of a salt room before you mentioned it to me.
Yeah.
And before I'd been in one. But for people, I imagine that's probably a lot of people who are listening to this. What is a salt room?
It's magic. Technically, it is a room that is lined. There's a lot of ways to do a salt room. I'm going to describe the Modrn Salt Room first and then go from there. Modrn Sanctuary has think of a 200 square foot room with 11.5-foot ceilings, where when you walk in, instead of just the brick walls that you would see on a building, we've taken actual Himalayan salt and made bricks out of it and created brick walls with it. Behind that pink salt, which is translucent, are LED lights that line the room. So we can make it green, purple, blue, or just put white light to make the beautiful pinkness of the salt shine. And then on the floor is a heat mat, a radiant heat mat like you'd find in a bathroom, overlaid by granulated Himalayan salt. Little tiny rocks like you'd find in a salt grinder, that when you heat the floor, it's going to release negative ions to attach to all the free radicals in your body, ground your energy. The LED lights allow for color therapy. And I think the coolest part of this room, aside from just being within the energy of it, is that Himalayan salt is over 200 million years old.
200 million?
200 million, not a misquote. When the primordial,
I didn't even know the Earth was 200 million years old.
Yeah, so when the primordial oceans dried up, they left these salt deposits in the Himalayas, and then plate tectonics, etc., created the Himalayan mountain ranges. So the story goes, and don't quote me, I'm sure somewhere it's gotten lost in translation a bit, but
we won't quote you, we'll just record this.
Totally. Don't hold me to it. But from what I remember, Alexander the Great's horses were coming out through the desert, and they were all dehydrated, tired, exhausted, and the horses were found licking some rock. And it turned out it was Himalayan salt, because, when you lick salt, it can help hydrate, despite what you might think about salt. And they started digging it up. Now, this salt, what I find amazing, why I love pink salt, number one, it's got 84 trace minerals, the same ones you find in the body, mixed in with it, which is why it's going to have these really pretty sort of like mosaic patterns within it. But it also has been untouched by human hands until it's been mined. So unlike sea salt, which is going to be in the ocean where there's, unfortunately and sadly, a lot of contamination, it is untouched. And I think that's absolutely amazing that when you're sitting within this salt room, it's almost like you're back in the womb, which if you think about a womb, it is salt water. We come from the ocean. We're drawn to salt. We need salt. That it really creates this womb-like environment where outside that room, it's pretty quiet. Nothing exists outside that room. And I think it's really just quite phenomenal to be in there.
And so what happens to someone in a salt room? What are the wellness benefits?
The wellness benefits. So there's two types of salt rooms. One is called an active salt room. The other is called a passive salt room. Modrn Sanctuary can be either. The differential there is that a active salt room is going to have what's a salt generator. And that means that there's going to be a tiny machine that's going to take medical grade salt and pulverize it into a dust and blow it into the room. So you'll have these microparticles floating through the air in the room that you're going to begin to breathe in. Now, salt is a natural drying agent, meaning it absorbs it. It's It's going to absorb.
Absorbent?
Absorbent. Yes, thank you. It is a naturally absorbing. If you can't have fun, right? You can't laugh at yourself. It's it's a natural absorbent. Perfect. So what does that mean? It means if you're having asthma, bronchitis, sinus infections, it's going to go in to dry it out. If you have dermatitis, if you have eczema, psoriasis, it's going to go to dry it out. The energy in the room is very grounding because of the negative ions. It's going to relax you. And then salt, just in general, most people get very nervous because I think the health and wellness sphere has made such a big deal about ingestion of salt and causing high blood pressure. But there's a difference between inhaling it and ingesting it. So it's a very different experience that you're going to have. People who sit in the salt room, even if you have the generator off, the New York Times wrote an article on us. It's a great place to take a business meeting. The best part is you leave feeling really calm. I know when I take meetings in there, I'm like, I'm going to get out of here. I'm so relaxed that I don't know how I'm going to go on with my day. But it's a nice way to just sort of have a quiet moment. Some people meditate in there. Some children love to get into the salt and just play in it. It's not uncommon. I've had people come out with salt in their hair because they were just like rolling around in it. So it's playful. It's like the beach. And I think people feel safe, which is another key word. When people feel safe, they behave very different in their life.
I love the idea of taking business meetings in the salt room. How much does it cost?
So a typical session, there's 3 chairs in the room, is going to run you for the first session $35. You can book the room privately. I think it's for $95 if you wanted it for the hour, half hour. I should know this. I don't, strangely, but we can always curate an experience for anybody. If you want to do a massage in the salt room, we can do that. A lot of practitioners will do different treatments. We just ask them no needles for like acupuncture or what have you, and no water.
Right. Salt water.
Yeah, no, the water is going to degrade it. So we're like, no water.
And so who are the other practitioners in Modrn Sanctuary? Are you vetting them? What's their quality? How are you finding them?
That's a really wonderful question. And as the owner and leader there, it's been very important for me to keep up the integrity of the energy. And I think energy, as I had spoken with you earlier before this, and I think in our BNI meeting this morning, energy, the law of energy is that it's neither created nor destroyed. It's just transferred from one form to another. So if you understand anabolic and catabolic energy, there's definitely 2 types. So when you meet someone who's really down or stressed or angry, it's a catabolic energy. It's going to break down your cell where you're going to feel your energy come down, right? And it doesn't mean that they're good or bad. It's just an energy, right? Being around people who are really sad brings you down. Being around people who are really energetic, positive, really brings your energy up. So to keep the energy of Modrn Sanctuary has been very important, especially with who you're bringing in. So everyone that's come in and taken space, we've been very particular about meeting with them. We've certainly had a couple people that weren't good fits. A good fit for us, while we are a luxury brand, we try to be a very approachable, non-pretentious energy. So people who are coming in very flashy of like, oh, I work with J-Lo or this, that's not who we are. We are home. We are a family. We're a very tight-knit group of practitioners that it's not uncommon that we'll hang out or we'll at 8 o'clock on a Thursday go, let's all have a drink here. In fact, I think we had one party once on a random Friday where the wellness center is built, it's almost like there's a border around the interior. So there's rooms around the peripheral, and then inside there's another square of treatment rooms. So there's like a square that you can follow around. We actually took a chair and we're like, let's do chair races around. How fast can you like push the chair around the wellness center to get back? So it's a very good group of people. We're close, and the energy has been nothing but important. People feel it when they walk in. We did wellness different. We have black walls, and we have a crocodile wallpaper that the whole center was designed around that I found. And people, when I told them I was painting the walls black, let me tell you, we're like, that's not wellness. You're way off base. I can't believe you're doing this. And it was very intentional to play off the idea of sensory deprivation. and the idea of coming down. Because I think a lot of wellness, you think light, bright, and white, but that's going to bring you up. I want people to disconnect and come down. And so we've always been very interested of like practitioners helping people get grounded, right? Gravity, earth, be in your experience.
And are you filled up with practitioners at this point? Is the space fully rented?
We have room for a couple more practitioners. We do make sure, one of the things as a renter is we ask for a commitment. We are looking for people who are going to not just come in and out of our lives, but we're looking for a relationship with you. So we do ask for a year contract with practitioners. Of course, like there are, if you don't want to be there, things aren't working out. Again, it comes down to energy. While we are on contract, zero lawyer, no, But if you don't want to be there, your energy will just create a different energy in the space. So we always look to find a solution of how to compensate to get you out or compensate to find a solution. But we do ask for a year-long commitment, but we do have them days available. Unfortunately, no full-time rooms available. Or fortunately.
I was going to ask that. Is it each practitioner has to practice 7 days a week in the space, 5 days a week? What is that like?
We do have a couple practitioners who work 5 days a week. If you're in the healing practice, so for hypnotherapy and therapists, they say about 24 hours is a good week. More than that, there seems to be a return on investment of energy, because when you're working one-on-one with someone, it's a very different experience. Because think about someone in an office. Now, this is not to say that people who work in an office aren't getting a lot out of their day. It's just a different type of work. When
you could call them bad people if you
They're
want.
awful people. We hate them all. You should come for wellness.
They're your best customers. They're the stressed out ones, right?
Right. So a practitioner, when you're working one-on-one, similar to you're doing this podcast, right? It's very intense work of listening. Your attention isn't going to your phone, a computer thing. You're not getting up to go grab something. It is right there for an hour. Your attention is very focused on this one person. And that takes a lot of energy, especially while you're listening, healing, coming up with plans. There's a lot going on an internal level, and it can be very draining. So 24 hours a week is usually the max. Now, there was a time when I was working a lot more than that, and there are days you come out feeling very energized because you're getting a lot too from what you're giving. But if you're leaving your day feeling incredibly drained, you're giving a lot. And you're usually, there was a point where I realized I was working too hard to fix people, and I can't. My job's not to fix them. It's to help guide them to understand themselves, for them to do their own work and to find their own tools. I'm here to teach you tools, but I can't do the work for you. But I think a lot of practitioners come from a place of, I want to fix you. If you just do what I say, your life will be better, because we've been there. And most healers come from a place of like, I've experienced this, I want to help.
So most of the people are a few days a week, it seems there.
Yeah. Back to your original question. Yes.
And is there cross-selling among the different practices? How does that work?
Right now, there are internal referral resources available. What I'm looking to build out with my partner right now is a concierge service that is going to go, okay, so what are your goals? How can we help you? Whether you buy into the whole package we'll create or just want to try one or two parts of it, I think people don't always know what they need until someone suggests it. Right? So if you came in and you're saying that you have back pain, I might ask you, well, what's been going on that's causing that? Now, I can certainly get you into the chiropractor to do a superficial treatment of aligning your spine right away. But if you're getting that back pain because you've been running or working out, we might want you to see the physical therapist to do some prehab or rehab. We might even want you to come for some yoga to try strengthening different muscles within your body. So we want to be able to do a full encompassment of what it is you need, provide that data to you, and then you can pick and choose what you prefer to do. But I think most people, if you're like, listen, if you want to get whole, it's why a lot of people are moving away from doing medication, right? It treats the symptoms, not the problem. So it's how do we begin to treat the whole?
And I want to ask you this question because it seems like there's a lot more of a focus on flexible work conditions for practitioners or office space. There's a lot of co-working space, shared office space, and you're doing this in the wellness sphere. And so what's to stop one of these large companies like a WeWork or The Yard or the other names that you mentioned from saying, hey, you know what? We have a lot of money. We know the flexible shared space world really well, and just opening up WeWork Sanctuary or something like that.
They absolutely could. And I would completely applaud them for doing it. We're in New York, and I've always stood by this. They're not our competition. They're our biggest asset. I think it's wonderful that all these buildings have opened up that are full service luxury where you can have it all in one place. But let's face it, at the end of the day, you probably want to get out of that one place before you get cabin fever. We don't want to be the best health and wellness center. We just want to be better. And we want to do it unique, and we want to offer you something that is really given to you with care and intention and energy that is different from everybody else. And so while a WeWork can certainly do it, is that what they do well? Maybe, but I know what we do well, and we're always looking to make it better. And I think that's what makes us really unique.
What will make you better?
At this point, I think it is more cross-pollination between the practitioners. I think one of the deficits that we have is because it's a double-edged sword, right? Because everyone is independent businesses within it. We do have our own treatments that we run and stuff as well. But because everyone is their own business, there's not as much cross-pollination as there could be. And because people are there on different days, they might not actually ever cross paths. So I believe it's our job as a wellness leader within the business to really help that action happen. And that's where I think the concierge service is really going to become important too.
So in addition to cross-pollination, are there any services that you're offering the solopreneurs, the practitioners, to help them with their businesses that helps them grow?
Well, I think part of this is, what's very interesting, and I learned this the hard way a few years ago, there is a difference between a practitioner and a business owner. Now, most practitioners who are solopreneurs are business owners. And you're going to see, and I've seen it within our business, and this is not to say that they're bad practitioners. They're probably actually quite amazing, but they're not great business owners. Because the hustle that you need to do to differentiate yourself within Manhattan, especially, for example, there's a lot of nutritionists. And I remember working with our nutritionist who's phenomenal. And I've never seen anyone work harder than her this last year to really bring her business to where it is. But I was like, you need your one niche. You need your gimmick. She's like, no, I want to do it. And I was like, what's your gimmick? What's your one thing? That doesn't mean you have to do just that one thing. But it's that one thing that differentiates you that people will be like, oh, I need that. And then you're going to start getting the referrals, right? Like I specialize in anxiety stress management for my job. People I work with that are like, oh, do you do smoking? Sure, I do smoking. It's not my bread and butter. But, people talk about it. But going back to your question, I do believe, and I was working with a practitioner today, that there is a lot of room for improvement for practitioners to learn the business side of what it's like to run a business and how to improve their business while we can also improve their business with them and for them. And I think that's where we need to improve as a company is how do we really support our practitioners more, bringing them more business, which means they'll want more time to rent, which means they'll be happier. And it's a win-win situation for everyone.
And what about the logistics, like the billing, payment processing, all that sort of stuff?
So first, the practitioners have to elect into it. We hope that they all will. Some have such a successful practice, they don't maybe need more business, which we just love. We think that's so wonderful. So a lot of it would be that, we're going to broker their services for them, maybe take a percentage. This is, as the practitioner, I'm always like, oh, it feels weird to do that. But if I step into my business hat, that there's a cost to us to bring in more revenue. And if we can take a percentage of what they're charging, it doesn't have to be high, just to cover our back end costs of front desk staff, marketing materials, the work that's being done, it comes out full fold, right? So if they're seeing 3 clients a day that they get, but we can bring them 3 more at no cost to them, even though we take it off the top, there's no money going out their pocket first. It's really just going to come off the top as we bring them in for them. So it's a win-win.
And what sort of percentage are you talking about? Business
So
side?
we were thinking anywhere from about 10 to 20%, and maybe the practitioners can readjust their pricing to accommodate that. But usually we're looking probably 10 to 20%. Which will help pay the sales team, pay the front desk, marketing materials, etc.
How are people finding you now?
So right now, this has been one of the biggest other challenges as a business is we are not ground floor retail space. So unless you know where we are, we're that hidden gem. And truly when people come in, they're like, we had no idea this existed. I will say, while we don't have tons of services on Groupon, we do have a few. Groupon has been an amazing free marketing tool. I would say a lot of it has been PR. We've been written about in so many amazing magazines and such that, that helps get the word out, of course. And it also helps legitimize who we are as a business, that we can stand behind some press. And then a lot of it is just turning it into word of mouth and getting now where I've realized now that I've been running around like a chicken with my head off, being the first solopreneur doing all of this, the marketing seat, I broke my toe even building furniture before we opened. My poor toe. I should say I broke my arm, right? Or my back. But it's really now that we have some capital being infused, it does open up the pathway for us to now go out and network, to really, now that things are more stabilized on a foundation level, to go help network, share. And I think it's all about community. I would never have gotten to where I am without having a community. And I've realized community is really what it's all about. So when they say Rome wasn't built in a day, trust me, it wasn't. And that it takes a village, it truly does.
That is a wonderful note to wrap things up on. How do people find out more about you and Modrn Sanctuary?
Absolutely. Great question. We would like to firstly open up our community to all of your listeners by offering them a discount on several of the services that we have with the code NYLaunch. This code can be utilized for a discount on our cryo skin treatment if you want to come get your fat frozen or your body toned. It can be used in the Salt Room, Crystal Bed, Somadome Meditation Pod. We'd be happy to offer a flat rate discount for massage as well. We will put up a page specifically for you and your community on our Modrn Sanctuary page. It will all be available at modrnsanctuary.com/NYLaunch. And please note that Modrn is spelled without the E. So it's MODRN Sanctuary. We leave the E off for the experience that you'll have when you come.
Well, that is fantastic. And thank you very much. Alexandra Janelli, you have been such a soothing voice. I think people probably have enjoyed listening to this podcast the most. And it probably shows how great you are as a hypnotherapist. Thank you for sharing your time with us.
You're very welcome. And my soothing voice, I think, which is always funny, just to wrap things up, I actually grew up with a horrible lisp and was made fun of it. My grandfather and my great-grandfather, my uncle, have the longest running radio show in Manhattan. So radio has always been in the blood. And if someone had told me I was going to be using my voice for my profession, I would have laughed. But now you can see, coming home within self, one can let go of their lisp too.
Great fun fact to end things on. And if you want to learn more about the New York Launch Pod, you can follow us on social media at NYLaunchPod and visit us online at nylaunchpod.com for transcripts of every episode, including this one, but you won't get Alexandra's voice on the transcript. And if you are a super fan, Alexandra, are you a super fan?
Yes, I am a super fan.
If you are a super fan like Alexandra, you can leave a review on iTunes and Apple Podcasts. It does help people discover the show, and it is greatly appreciated.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the New York Launch Pod. For more information, please visit nylaunchpod.com.